Alright, I've been driving the Taurus enough now. I feel like I can give kind of an honest assessment of it. You know, when I first got it, I was pretty disappointed with it, to be honest. I really expected it to have more power and better gas mileage, and I was kind of shocked that, at least initially, the gas mileage was actually worse than even the Charger and both Vics. So I thought, why would you even want a V6 if it's getting worse gas mileage? But after getting accustomed to it, it's grown on me a little bit. I still wouldn't replace the Vics with a Taurus, but it's not as bad as I initially thought. For one thing, the gas mileage has gone up, and it gets about 1 mile per gallon better than the Vics. So not significant, but it is at least a little bit better. And when you kind of get used to driving it, you start to figure out how to make it perform a little better. The Vic and the Taurus definitely drive differently, and so when you're used to driving one and then you get in the other one, it's hard to get used to getting them to accelerate and not waste a bunch of gas doing it in the process. I don't know if you agree or not, but I like the Crown Vic better than the Taurus up here. This information display thing, it's kind of annoying, to be honest, because if you're wanting to see, for example, the temperature, you have to back out of there, go down to here, and look at it that way. So if you're driving and you're not used to pushing all these buttons and everything, it kind of distracts from you being able to drive safely and also look at your coolant temp, whereas on the Vic, you just look down and it's right there. Also missing is a 2 and a 1, as well as the overdrive off. What they give you instead is you push the button and it just drops into low gear, and what it says is it'll keep shifting down until it can't shift down anymore. So like, it's not gonna, if you're in 6th gear cruising, it's not going to immediately shift into 1st. With the Crown Vic, obviously you have everything right there that's important to see, like the temperature, the gas. I would probably prefer the speedometer be in the center, but they didn't ask me. The steering wheel controls have kind of grown on me. I do like that you have your cruise control right here. You have the resume, but you also have the cancel button, so you don't have to tap the brakes or turn it completely off to cancel your setting. You just hit that if you're wanting to slow down. I haven't even messed with those, but obviously those are nice to have there as well. I'm guessing this and that are the same thing. It's just if you're right or left-handed with it. The Vic cruise control is slightly less user-friendly. You have to turn it on every time you get in the car. You can't just leave it on, which I've never understood that. That seems to be a Ford thing. Chevys, you're able to just leave the cruise control on and then just set it whenever you want to. But you notice it lacks a cancel. So you've got your resume, your set plus and minus, but you don't have a cancel. So the only way to cancel it is to hit the brakes or to turn it completely off, and then you have to turn it back on. Now I realize that's not a major thing, but you're talking about extra things that you have to do while driving. So you're having to hit off, then turn it back on, and then set it again. And I just feel like any time you have to do an extra key press or anything, there's always a chance of you being distracted for a moment and possibly wrecking. Obviously the stereo is much nicer here than it is in the Vic. The Vic, you get an AM/FM radio. This one you've got MP3 CD capability. It appears that it also has a way to sync up with your phone, although I haven't tried to do that. I'm not much of a cell phone guy. Coming down to climate controls, the Vic is superior yet again. This is just a lot of buttons, and when you're trying to drive and trying to figure out if you're wanting air to blow out the vents and out the floor at the same time. You're pushing this middle button here, and again, it's taking your eyes off the road, whereas with the Vic, you just have the nice simple dials, and they're pretty user-friendly. Obviously, I have an aftermarket radio. This one, believe it or not, was only like 55 bucks on Amazon, and it seems to do a pretty good job, so I'll stick with it for now. But obviously it's not the factory one. The factory one was just that crazy AM/FM radio. Crown Vic rocks in the climate controls. I mean, you can't get much simpler than this. Highly effective and simple and easy at the same time. You want your air cooler or hotter, you turn the dial. You want more or less fan, you turn the knob. And then deciding on whether you want max AC, normal AC, vent, off, floor, mix, or defrost is as simple as turning that knob, and it makes pretty much sense. Like, it's easy to learn and remember and know exactly where everything is, so you don't even have to take your eyes off the road when you're driving. They give you 2 cigarette lighter plugs there, and then you see I've added in 1 the camera override and 2 the USB port there with the voltmeter. The trunk pop is annoying on the Taurus. Mine doesn't work. I'm assuming it's a 4-scan setting and not, a problem with the button itself. And unlike the Vic, where you just unplug from the back and change it from accessory power to full-time power, everything is handled electronically. Again, it would be 4-scan or similar device to change it. The problem is when you get into 4-scan, it's not as simple as activate the trunk pop, yes or no. It's one of those 700 programming things, and those are not easy to find online. There was a master list at one point and somebody deleted it, so I don't know how you're supposed to find how to change the programming on there. But as of right now, mine is completely inoperative. Key on, key off, hold it down, press it once, twice, 3 times, etc., etc., etc. It just doesn't work. Trunk pop on the Vic, it just works. It's just an old school button. You see mine is set to be only when the key is on, so right now it doesn't work, but if I turn the key on, it will pop. And it's easy to switch. Just pull this panel, and there's an electrical connector behind. One says ACC, and the other is for full-time power. Taurus doors are limited by that strap there, so that's as far as you can open it. And it makes it a little bit tighter to get in and out of. And then you have just a little bit less room everywhere, and the seats are definitely way less comfortable and less supportive. Only plus would be this one has power seats. Now obviously some of the P71s and P7Bs had power seats too, but the Vic doors open wider, so they're easier to get in and out of, and you definitely seem to have more room for yourself, your feet. And I would say arguably these seats are way, way, way more comfortable than the Taurus seats. The Achilles heel of the Taurus is definitely visibility, particularly out of the rear. Now you would think a police patrol vehicle, you want extreme visibility for the driver to be able to see out all directions, so when you're on patrol you can observe things. It's almost blind out of the rear, probably a good 20 feet behind the vehicle. It's completely blind. I don't think it's just a height issue. I just think it's a bad design of having this basically raised up, elevated compared to the rest of the vehicle. This is the only vehicle I've had that issue with. All the other vehicles I can see out of the rear just fine. Vic, on the other hand, never a blind spot. I always feel completely confident that I can see everybody coming up behind me, riding in my blind spot, whatever, and I never make a lane change in this car wondering if it's safe. And visibility out the rear, I feel like you can pretty much see almost anything directly behind the vehicle even. There is one thing that the Taurus just destroys the Crown Vic with, and that is the 6-speed transmission. If you took the 6-speed out of the Taurus and put it in the Crown Vic, you would completely change the vehicle. First gear is over 4-to-1 ratio, so it would basically melt the tires in a Crown Vic. It would be about like having probably a 410 rear end in a regular Crown Vic. But because it's 6 speeds, second gear is about like the first gear in the Vic, and so on, and then you go all the way up and you have your overdrive. So you can put a lower number rear end in a Crown Vic if you had the 6-speed Taurus, and it would completely change the driving experience. It would be like having a higher number rear end when you're trying to accelerate, while keeping the lower number rear end when you're just cruising. And arguably the transmission is why the Taurus is even able to perform at all, because I think if you stuck the Crown Vic transmission in this V6, you would not get anywhere near the performance, particularly off the line. As far as maintenance and working on the vehicles, almost everything on the Vic is easier, more user-friendly, more common sense. You don't go, why did they do this? Whereas on the Taurus, there's still a lot of things that they've over-engineered and so forth. Now there's a few things that they have put on here that are better than the Vic. For example, accessing some of the things under the glove box is much easier. So I do give them credit for that. But by and large, V6 front or all-wheel drive, it's just not as user-friendly as the good old-fashioned V8 rear-wheel drive. In the end, honestly, they're both very good daily drivers. If I had to pick one, I would pick the Vic. There's just nothing about the Taurus that makes it a winner overall. You can drive the Taurus, and eventually it kind of grows on you and you start to enjoy it a little bit, and then you get back in the Vic and you go, oh yeah, this is why I like the Vic. Whoever designed the Vic, they just did a really good job. They made arguably the greatest daily driver ever made, and that's why you see so many people that are happy with them. That's why they're growing in price, and why if you have a nice Crown Vic, you really want to hang on to it and take good care of it.